San Musa revoke the amendment.
Make it Bauchi and Ekiti.
The amendment is to urge the Minister of Works and Housing to address the deplorable condition of federal roads in Ekiti State and other parts of Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, distinguished Senator Mohamed Adamu Bulkachua, you second, because you seconded the first one.
Yes, Mr. President, I, Senator Adamu Mohamed Bulkachua, representing Bauchi North, do rise to second the motion moved by Senator Abdullah Musa that Sani Musa, that federal roads.
What did you second the motion? Oh, okay. Distinguished colleagues, our only prayer has been amended by Senator Mohamed Sani Musa and seconded by who got additional prayer. As amended, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer. Additional prayer, Senator Matthew Urogide.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Senator Matthew Urogide. I represent the South Central District. Mr. President, my additional prayer is this. I urge the Ministry of Works and Housing to review the design and quality of federal roads in Nigeria, taking into consideration the peculiarity of our environment. Mr. President, if you allow me to...
No, it's okay. It's not a debate. It's an additional prayer, and I'm sure it's understood. Distinguished Senator Sam Egu. Senator Sam Egu.
Mr. President, Sam Egu, Ebonyi North. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as proposed by distinguished Senator Matthew Urogide. There's no second.
Secretary, you have gotten the additional prayer. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Matthew Urogide and seconded by Senator Sam Egu, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Additional prayer. Deputy Senate Leader.
The additional prayer is urge the federal government to develop the bitumen. Urge the federal government to develop the bitumen industry in Nigeria to reduce the cost of road construction.
Distinguished colleagues, let's listen to our colleague in silence, please. Minority Whip. I think that side is a bit noisy. Please, distinguished colleagues, you can discuss in low tones, please. But let's listen to our colleagues, please. Go on, Deputy Leader.
Urge the federal government to develop the bitumen deposits in Nigeria as proposed by the chief whip to reduce the cost of road construction in Nigeria.
Can I also say that we shouldn't just restrict it to the bitumen and other raw materials available in the country? Just vitamin is okay. But if we are going vitamin, maybe there are other raw materials that we.
To all the federal government to deposit to develop the bitumen deposit in Nigeria and other road construction materials to reduce the cost of road construction in the country.
Yes, Seconder, the Chief Whip.
Mr. President, I stand to second the motion ably moved by
what the additional prayer is for this side particularly. The additional prayer sought by the Deputy Senate Leader is urge the federal government of Nigeria to develop the bitumen. What? Bitumen what? To develop the bitumen and other raw materials for road construction in Nigeria. Just to make the bitumen sites, okay, just to make it cheaper. So, those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. The additional prayer, distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, urge the state governments to be involved directly in interstate federal road rehabilitation in their respective states in collaboration with Federal Ministry of Work towards recovery of costs associated on completion.
You are protected. You are protected. Any seconder. Distinguished Akielure, your additional prayer, the motion is dead. Additional prayer, Senator Uche Yakunife.
Mr. President, thank you very much. No matter the grammar and the support we give to this motion, the most important thing is funding. Without funding,
give us the additional prayer.
President, to urge the federal government to extend NMPC tax credit scheme to maintenance of road through FEMA as a support.
Any seconder? No seconder. Any seconder? Okay. Senator Francis Alimakena.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Francis Alimigena, representing the good people of Edo North. I rise to
Senator.
I rise to second the motion ably moved by the additional prayer ably moved by Senator.
Okay, I will put the question. Those in favor of the motion for additional prayer by Senator Uche Lillian Ekwinife and seconded by Senator Francis Elimekena say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Additional prayer. Additional prayer, Senator Mohamed Aliru.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Muhammad Adamu Alero, representing Kebbi Central. The last prayer is to implore the federal government of Nigeria to explore the possibility of using public-private partnership in road construction and road maintenance.
I need a seconder. Distinguished Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpeyo.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate. My name is Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpeyo, representing the good people of Akwa Ibom Northwest in this great chamber. My distinguished colleague, Mr. President, I rise to second that brilliant additional prayer ably moved by distinguished Senator Alero. I so second.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Mohammed Adamu Alero, seconded by His Excellency Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpeyo, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. But truly, we have to make efforts to develop the raw materials that are available in our country for road construction, because that will make it cheaper and easier for us to maintain our roads. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of the House bill standing in my name on the Federal College of Medical Laboratory Science and Technology, just Bill 2022 HB 1421. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal College of Medical Laboratory Science and Technology, JOS, Bill 2022, HB 1421, first reading.
Federal College of Medical Laboratory Science and Technology, JOS Bill 2022, HB 14.
Say, distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is also the presentation of the House bill standing in my name on the Federal University of Education, Isiokolo, Delta State, Establishment Bill 2022, HB 1653. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Education, Isiokolo, Delta State Establishment Bill 2022, HB 1653, first reading.
Federal University of Education, Isiokolo, Delta State Establishment Bill 2022, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of the bill standing in the name of Senator Ndume Muhammad Ali on the Chartered Institute of Facility Management Establishment Bill 2022, SB 191. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of it.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Chartered Institute of Facility Management Establishment Bill 2022, SB 191, first reading.
Chartered Institute of Facility Management Establishment Bill 2022, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Musa Mohammed Sani on the Pandemic Response and Management Bill 2022, SB 890. Mr. President, we wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Pandemic Response and Management Bill 2022, SB 890, first reading.
Pandemic Response and Management Bill 2022, SB 890, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Odia Clifford on the Nigeria Insurance Corporation Act, Amendment Bill 2022, SB 946. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigeria Reinsurance Corporation Act Amendment Bill 2022, SB 946, first reading.
Nigeria Insurance Corporation Act Amendment Bill 2022, SB 946, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name under the committee of the National Institute of Hospitality and Tourism, Establishment Bill.
You may proceed.
And was transmitted to the President for assent. Observes that some fundamental issues which require fresh legislative action by both chambers of the National Assembly emerged after a critical analysis of the bill by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief. Aware that a technical committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives and Directorate of Legal Services met and worked on the bill, relying on Order 1, subsection D, and Order 52, subsection 6 of Senate Standing Order 2022 as amended. Accordingly resolves to resign the decision to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and passage.
Have you finished moving your motion? Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I move that we resolve it to Committee of the Whole.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this is not a controversial bill. So I'll be a little bit fast. Those in favor at clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, functions of the Institute, clause 5, clause 6, clause 7, clause 8, clause 9 and 10, and clause 10. Stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 11, remuneration, is on page 10 of the report. Those in favor at clause 11, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, clause 15, clause 16, clause 17, clause 18, clause 19, and clause 20 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 21, investment of the fund of the Institute, on page 16 of the report. Those who were at clause 21, clause 22, establishment of housing scheme, clause 23, clause 24, clause 25, clause 26, clause 27, clause 28, clause 29, and clause 30 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 31, registration of non-Nigerian practitioners, on page 21. Clause 31. Those in favor at clause 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 41 is on page 28. Those in favor at clause 41, clause 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor at clause 51, on page 33, 52 and 53 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the interpretation, on page 35 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the schedules 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the explanatory memorandum on page 41 stands part of in favor of the long title on page 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate, plenary.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate reverse to plenary and report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader. Leader, your mic. Minority Leader. Thank you. Those in favor that the Senate reverse plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 53 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the bill be read the third time. I so.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion for the bill to be read third time.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the bill for an act to establish the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for training, certification and registration of hospitality, travel and tourism personnel in Nigeria and for related matters 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act of hospitality, travel and tourism personnel in Nigeria and for related matters 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion standing in my name for concurrence resolution on the use of excessive force and abuse due to process by Nigerian Air Force against Bullbat Limited, adopted by the House of Representatives. The purpose of this motion is for the Senate to adopt a resolution of the House on the subject matters. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move the motion.
Leader, please. Before you move the motion, let me see you. Do you have any idea about this? Leader, you stand it down. Sorry?
Your mic, sir. Okay. Mr. President, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that we step down this to another legislative day.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we stand down this item on the order paper to another legislative day. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we stand down the consideration of this item on the order paper till another legislative day, say aye. Those against any the ayes have it. Leader, Senator Sakibo, you don't have to raise any point of order. I saw you with the Constitution and the red. Leader of the Senate.
The first order, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the second reading of Nigerian Industrial Development Authority Establishment Bill 2022 SB 1050. Distinguished senators, we recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 4th October 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Musa Mohammed Sani to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
What happened to the first one? You say Mohammed Sani, the first one is step down too. Okay. Distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I shall start the lead debate on this very important bill with the adage that no country has ever become rich by exporting raw materials and, in modern terms, advanced services sector. The more a country specializes in the production of raw materials, only the poorer it becomes. Industry multiples national wealth. This is a lead debate on a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Industrial Development Authority and other matters connected therewith, 2022 SB 1050. This bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Tuesday, 4th September 2022. The bill therefore sets out to diversify the economy and address the fundamental infrastructural impediments that is hindering production activities in the country. Move the country beyond selling raw materials to a more value-added processing and manufacturing one. Create jobs, generate wealth, diversify the economy, boost exports, and broaden the tax base. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, since the early 60s, abundant oil and gas resources have brought billions of dollars into the coffers of the country, leading to a neglect of other sectors which traditionally provided employment for about 40% of the population and a nascent manufacturing industry. Revenues from oil have hampered efforts to diversify the economy, leading to economic stagnation and recently economic recession, which has brought about this all-important legislation. The main objectives of this bill are to, 1, accelerate the build-up of industrial capacity within Nigeria, 2, increase manufacturing contribution to Nigeria's gross domestic product, drive the process of intense industrialization based on sectors where Nigeria has comparative and competitive advantages. The implementation of the bill, among other things, will facilitate job and wealth creation, provide for economic and revenue diversification, ensure import substitution and export diversification, broaden government's tax effort or tax base. The bill is therefore one of the most ambitious pieces of legislation that puts together a comprehensive industrial plan to diversify the economy, achieve industrial growth, and reduce poverty. This bill will address the age-old constraints that have persistently limited manufacturing. If enacted into law, it will build up industrial infrastructure, prioritize power for industrial use, reduce borrowing, and mobilize funding for the real sector. It will also facilitate youth training in industrial skills, improve our investment climate, raise productive standards, link innovation to industry, and enhance local patronage of made-in-Nigeria goods. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, this bill will provide this country with a robust manufacturing sector that will offer opportunities to Nigeria and Nigerians in the following areas: potential to become #1 in Africa and top 10 globally in many industrial sectors, build up labor-intensive sectors, produce locally for domestic consumer markets, become the manufacturing hub for ECOWAS and Africa, attract investment from East Asia, where cost of labor has begun to rise, fertilizing the entire value chain from production to distribution of priority sectors and subsectors of our economy. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, from the above analysis, your support for the bill is a support for the much talked about diversification of our national economy, as well as the answer of the 9th Senate agenda on the economy. Finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is to say the least, the much needed catalyst to steer the country out of the economic downturn. I therefore urge you, my distinguished colleagues, to rise up and lend your support to the speedy passage of this bill to serve our fatherland, as it does not have any financial implication to government. In line with Order 76, subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Order 2022, as amended, compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of the authority is hereby attached. Finally, I urge you to give this bill the desired support and approval it deserves in view of its peculiar nature and importance to the growth and development of the Nigerian industrial sector. Thank you for your support.
Distinguished Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this bill for the following reasons. For so many years, we've been trying to have a tool to assist bill is going to provide the platform and a tool for the diversification of the economy. However, to diversify the economy, we need the authority, and at the same time, we need to look at the fundamentals of the economy. One of them is many of us today have unsatiable interest for foreign goods. We spend so much money, so much foreign exchange on putting up the employment of other nations against the employment of Nigerian people. Secondly, we need also to look at the value of our currency vis-a-vis the other values of the other currencies. What I mean here is our currency, in my own opinion, Mr. Chairman, my distinguished colleagues, the Naira is not overvalued. The Naira is undervalued. I am yet to be given a good reason why our Naira is overvalued and continuously being depreciated by a model called classical economics theory. Mr. Chairman, we got to look at, in addition to establishing the authority, to look at the fundamentals into which the authority will work. I support the authority will give us a platform for the diversification of the economy. At the same time, we will look at, those fundamentals of savings, of utilizing, our banking system rather than the central bank usurping the powers of the other banks, the commercial banks at this point in time. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I support this bill 100%, and I look forward to us passing it for second reading and at the same time going into the public to find out what the public feels about this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Mohammed Bima Nagi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my High Muhammad Nagi. I represent the people of Niger South from Niger State. Musa, for this wonderful bill. This bill is so important when you go through the history of developed countries. Industrialization is the foundation. We exporting raw materials can never get us out of the level that we are in as a developing country. For us to rise above this level, we need to industrialize. And by so doing, we will generate a lot of employment for our youth. Government will get more money through revenue. There are a lot of advantages when industrialization takes place. Therefore, I would like to stand and support and commend my brother, and I support that everybody should support this bill for second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senate Leader.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this very important bill because with the establishment of this bill, I'm definitely sure Nigeria, particularly in terms of industrialization, will flourish. The last speaker talked about the issue of the valuing or the valuation of the Naira. Yes, when you don't have industries in the country, when there is no industrialization, certainly you will find that the issue, there would be a lot of pressure on the Naira because you find that a lot of people are looking for foreign exchange only to go and buy something outside and then also sell locally. And if you are getting dollar to sell locally, then certainly you are just exerting unnecessary pressure on the Naira. Then the other issue is the area, when this is established, there are key areas where they will have to look at it. Number one, we would have to be stationing this one in each part of the country. That means each state will have to take this one. There must be, they must establish this authority in each state so that at least we can be able to know which company should be allowed to import, which one should not be allowed to import. Then, like the issue of diversification that has been talked about, the issue of import substitution, all this we have to do. And once we are able to do this, certainly Nigeria is going to be great. So, Mr. President, I support this bill wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, no country has ever become economically buoyant without a strong industrial base, without a strong real sector. Therefore, the need to create a strong industrial base in this country cannot be overemphasized. I therefore commend the sponsor of this bill. Mr. President, it is a fact that we have been preaching, we've been talking about creating a sound, robust, up and doing real sector in this country. And I want to commend the present administration, because looking at the indices, as we speak, our non-oil revenues are more than the oil revenue, which shows what we've been preaching is being achieved, even though not at the fast rate as you want. Buoyancy. Then, of course, we have to agree in totality with the content of this bill. Create the enabling environment. Make sure we have uninterrupted supply of the needed energy to drive a sound industrial system. Well, in this respect, I also want to commend the government because of the AKK project that is now ongoing, so that it can benefit from the gas that is supplied by this project. But what we need to do is to harmonize our efforts as put together by this bill. Whatever we do, if we don't put, if we don't harmonize, we don't really work together and make sure that we really touch those areas, the enabling environment, create the enabling environment, bring about those necessities, those fundamentals, then of course we don't achieve what we want to achieve. And that's why I'm in total support of this bill. We need to work with this bill, get it passed, passion to create a sound and open glorious sentence will be achieved. I therefore urge my colleagues to support this bill, because this is what will lead us to an economic El Dorado. This country will be turned to economic El Dorado if we are able to achieve the content, the intendments of this bill.
Voice also to the debate be something similar of cocoa and continuous export of our palm produce, because they simply evacuated our groundnuts in raw forms. They went and processed them and brought them back to us in different forms at higher prices. So they didn't help us really. If they had wanted to help Nigeria at that time, similarly, when we export our crude, we don't get the best out of it. And therefore, we need to really, as this bill would want us to do, process, go through the value chain so that we are able to provide not only wealth, but employment opportunities for our people. So those in favor.
To establish the Nigeria Industrial Development Authority and for other matters connected there with 2022, SB 1050, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Nigeria Industrial Development Authority and for other matters connected there with 2022, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Industry to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the National Center for Women Development Act, Amendment Bill 2022, SB 1040. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 27th July 2022. Mr.
President, you may wish to invite Senator Apia next to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Betty Apiafi.
I move that the second reading of the bill for an act to amend the National Center for Women Development, Establishment Act Cap 15, Laws of the Federation 2004, to enhance the functions of the center and to rename the center after Her Excellency late Dr. Mrs. Miriam Ibrahim Babangida and other related matters. Procurement Act Cap number 15, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to, among other things, correct observable drafting errors in the Principal Act, bring functions of the Governing Council in conformity with other existing legislation, and rename the center as the Miriam Babangida National Center for Women Development in appreciation of us of the Governing Council, herein referred to as the Council, to award contracts in the Principal Act. The center is unable to award contracts in excess of 50 million without the approval of the President. This hinders have powers to award contracts subject to the provisions of existing laws. We have several laws that deal with procurement process and all of that. So we want the center to also benefit.
Those against saying there is a clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the National Center for Women Development Act, Cap N15, LFN 2004, to enhance the functions of the center and rename the center after Mariam Babangida and for related matters, 2022, SB 1042, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Center for Women Development Center and rename the center after Mariam Babangida and for related matters 2022 second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the committee. The bill is referred to the Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies, Mokwa, Niger State. Establishment Bill 2022. Order. 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Buwa Mohammed Enagi to move the motion for the bill to be read.
Distinguished Senator Buwa Mohammed Enagi, Niger South.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly respected, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Buwa Mohammed Enagi. I represent the people of Niger South. I rise to lead the debate on the establishment of the Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies, Mokwa, Niger State. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm delighted to be permitted to lead a debate on a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies, Mokwa, Niger State. The bill is initiated out of compelling need to establish a federal university that will promote science-based research in all fields of agriculture and maritime studies to maximize the huge agricultural and maritime potentials in Mokwa and environs and facilitate our national socio-economic development. The establishment of this university is necessarily needed to harness the vast natural resources, respond to concerns of rapid growing population and challenging labor market, which only trained experts find vacancies to occupy and make value addition to the ongoing projects and make Nigeria better and self-sufficient in food. The bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 17th March 2022. The establishment of a Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies, Mokwa, one of the Nigeria's most prolific farming and fishing towns, and uniquely located in Niger State, is imperative in achieving the diversification agenda of Mr. President. If this bill is supported, Mr. President, my highly respected distinguished colleagues, steps toward the realization of SDG 2, 4, 9, and 12, which emphasizes the zero hunger, quality education, industry, innovation, production will be enhanced. The Niger State government, under the able leadership of His Excellency Alhaji Abubakar Sadiq Sani Bello, is willing to donate the premises and structured and existing infrastructure of the State College of Agriculture, Mokwa, which will be upgraded to the proposed university. Existing institutes and facilities in the locality that will be of great benefit and serve as departments of university include Institute of Agricultural Research, Mokwa, IITA Mokwa Research Station, Mokwa Ranch and Abattoir, Federal College of Wildlife Management, Mokwa, National Institute of Freshwater Fisheries, New Busa, Federal College of Freshwater Fisheries, also in New Busa. The objectives of the bill include establish Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies, Mokwa, to provide opportunities for research and training in agriculture and maritime studies, provide technical support to strengthen the agriculture and maritime sectors towards ensuring food security, efficient maritime services, and sustainable economic growth. Utilize the university for background support towards the realization of sustainable development goals. Provide research and training opportunities to standardize maritime practices in consonance with international best practices. Opportunities to standardize.
Senator Bima. First, Mr. President, I want to state that when we're talking about diversification of the economy, agriculture is one of the areas that we actually really need to look at. Okay, this specialized university will assist in agriculture and agro-allied industries, okay, in Nigeria, and that will go a long way into assisting the issue of import substitution strategy that we have been dwelling about, to help us to generate a lot of foreign exchange, and it will also help us to be self-sustainable in terms of our local consumption. So I therefore support the second reading of this bill, and with respect to the maritime segment of the university, in various areas of maritime activities in Nigeria. It is on this note that I second the second reading of this bill.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
Studies, Mokwa, Niger State, to make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration and for related matters 2022, SB 365, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture and Maritime Studies for its due, and the bill is referred to the Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the presentation and Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekun to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the report of the committee.
Distinguished Senator Solomon Olamilekun Adeola, Lagos West.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague. May I move that this Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2023-2025 medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategic paper. Mr. President, I so move. Receive and consider. Yeah.
Distinguished Senator Albert Basi Akpan Oba.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that this Senate do receive and consider the report from the Senate Joint Committee on Finance, National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework, MTEB, and fiscal strategic paper as moved by the chairman of the Joint Committee. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may let the report, please. You may present the report now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague, the report of the Senate Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2025 medium term.
And are you going to read everything here? But it's a very good document, so we need to take us through the most essential. Yeah. Okay, 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 okay.
Medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Mr. President, you will recall that the Senate at the sitting on Wednesday, the 21st of September 2022, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the 2023-2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, and referred same to the Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning for further legislative action. Mr. President, on. And also on page 3, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Page 4 has to do with the membership of the Joint Committee of both Finance and National Planning. The methodology that was adopted by the Joint Committee for this exercise is contained on page 6 and 4.0. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, which include invitation of the government-owned enterprises and all other revenue-generating agencies of the government, and also the MDAs, which has been categorized into 3 different categories: those that are fully funded, those that are partly funded, and those that are not funded at all by the federal government, were equally engaged in the process of trying to see what the government has in stock in the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper for 2022 to 2023. Page 7 include the list of agencies that were invited by the committee, and page 5.0, which starts with the budget implementation for 2022. Mr. President, you will recall that this document was forwarded to us in July when the Senate was going on recess. And the budget performance that can be measured as at the time this document was prepared is as at April of this year, because this is a document that, in accordance with, we have no other choice than to receive this document much earlier, because we need to work on it before the president should come around to lay his budget. That was why we have a budget performance that stops at April. Usually, the budget performance we should have should be as at 31st of July of this year. But because of the time frame and time constraint, the budget performance contained in this document is performance for 2022. In summary, starting with 5.0, the financial year of 2022, then ongoing vaccination in major economies of the world. It is, however, expected that the growth will rebound as more people get vaccinated and activities increase in major years, in major economies. Revenue outturn for 2022. Oil revenue. The gross oil and gas revenue was projected as 9.37 trillion for the full year of 2022, and as of April 2022, 1.28 trillion was realized out of the protracted sum of 3.
Is it 1.28 or 1.23? Okay.
1.23 trillion was realized out of the protracted sum of 3.12 trillion. This represents 39.4% and the daily consumption. After accounting for deduction, including 30% derivation, the net oil and gas revenue inflows to the Federation account amounted to only 883.48 billion. That is 629.49 billion, or 41.6% less than the prior year target. I'm on page 9, 5.12, Federation and VAT pool account distributable. The account available for distribution from the Federation account main pool was 1.52 trillion. Of these, the federal government received 802.50 billion as at April, while the state and local government received 407.04 billion and 3 113.81 billion respectively. The federal, state and local government received 107.67 billion, 358.9 billion, and 251.28 billion respectively from the VAT pool account. The amount available for distribution from the Federation account was 2.78 trillion. Of these, the federal government received 998.57 trillion, while the state and local government received 506.59 billion and 390.48 billion respectively from the main pool account. Federal, state, and local government received 132.70 billion, 442.33 billion, and 309.63 billion respectively also from the VAT pool account, the FGN revenue, which concerns the federal government of Nigeria. That is on 5.13. As of April 2022, the federal government retained revenue was only 1.63 trillion, 49% of the protracted target of 3.32 trillion. The FGN share of oil revenue was 285.38 billion, representing 39% performance, while non-oil tax revenue totaled 632.56 billion, a performance of 84%. CIT and the VAT collection were 298.83 billion and 102.97 billion, representing 99 and 98% of their respective target. Custom collection made up of import duties, excise, and fees, as well as Federation account special levies, trailed target by 76.77 billion, that is 34.03%. Other revenue amounting to 664 billion, of which independent revenue was 394.09 billion. As at May 2021, FGN retained revenue was about 1.84 trillion. That's 7% of the protected target of FGN share of oil revenue, which was 289.61 billion, which represents 50% performance. While the non-oil revenue totaled 618.76 billion, which represents 99.7% of the protected, and company income tax, CIT, and value-added tax collections were ahead of the target, of the budget target, with 290 billion and 123.85 billion, representing 102% and 125% respectively of the protected target for the period. Custom collection was 204.0 billion, 86% of their target. Other revenue amounting to 762, of which independent revenue was 487.01 billion. And this was a comparison for that period under 2021 and 2022, which we are currently in. For the expenditure outturn, which is on 5.2, the aggregate expenditure for 2022 is estimated at 17.32 trillion, with a protected spending target of about 5.77 trillion to end in April. The actual spending as of April 31st was 4.72 trillion. Of this amount, 1.94 trillion was for debt service and 1.26 trillion for personnel costs, including pension as at April. 773.63 billion has been spent on capital expenditure as at April. 6.0 assumption for underlying oil and gas revenue projection in 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. 6.1 assumption underlying oil revenue. 6.11 domestic crude oil production. The contribution of the crude oil production to Nigerian real GDP declined sharply from 9.25 in the first quarter of 2021 to 6.63% in the first quarter of 2022, rising from 1.8 million barrels a day in 2016. Average crude oil and condensate production, net of incremental production for repayment arrears, peaked at 2.09 million barrels per day in 2018, but declined continually thereafter to 2.0 million barrels in 2019 and 1.48 million barrels in 2021. 2022, the crude oil production was also 0.29 million barrels. Attributed the recent production disruption to various challenges, including crude oil affected a total of 8.80 million barrels of crude oil in 2022, representing a 10% decrease from the 9.77 million barrels lifted in March 2022. However, more significantly is the impact of the subsidy on petroleum motor spirit supply in the downstream sector. The sum of 4.0 trillion was provisioned in 2022 federal fiscal framework for implementation of the PMS subsidy in 2022. The NNPC deducted a total sum of 1.43 trillion between February and December 2021, while 947.53 billion was deducted for the PMS subsidy between January and April 2022. The deduction increased continually from 210.38 billion in January to 219.78 in February, 245.77 billion in March, 271.59 billion in April 2022. A direct result of this deduction is considerable to contain therein is the global crude oil supplies and demand, which clearly stated the role played by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and the OECD. Due to the rebounding global economy led by the emerging economics generally found, the market tightening also reflects the decline in the global oil inventories, enhanced energy efficiency, and generated penetration of alternative to oil. As figure 5.6 show, the burning light crude price increased steadily